Alright, so we're here for episode 2, and I better work because it took like 3 hours to watch, and I probably can only get this video to be about 10 minutes, or YouTube rejects it, I think. So let's dive right in. Okay, so it starts off with a one-on-one date because they're switching up the format this week, and it's a one-on-one and group date and another one-on-one. And so she chooses a guy named Chase, who I literally have never seen before the moment that she chooses him. And what they do is they decide to, or she wants to do yoga. Like, she's like, I've always wanted to do yoga, but I've never done it. So isn't this the time to do yoga? And I'm like, of course you want to do yoga because it fits in with your basic life. But they've never done it before. So they go, and it's like this woman, of course, standing on her head because that's what we think, that's what we non-yogis think yogis do. And she goes with this guy Chase, and they do elaborate partner yoga, but really they start with just like this weird thing that I like is like off-brand yoga, where they just lay on the ground thrusting their pelvis and then screaming. The instructor calls it an angergasm, and I'm like, oh my god, I could benefit from one of those so hard. And it's really silly because it's just, this show is so silly because it's like they've known each other for like literally a week, if that, right? And they're like, I really feel a connection to him. Like, I really feel like this could be going somewhere. And it's like, well, of fucking course. You're like in this beautiful place. There's a mansion. Circumstances are not. It's like, you know what? If you fall in love with somebody under those kind of circumstances, it's not real. Let's just be real. If you are under stress with each other, or if you're on unusual circumstances, the love that you feel is not real. And it's just, these people are so crazy. They're like, oh my god, I was hurt before, and now suddenly I found myself coming alive. And it's like, well, of course, because you're going to these weird partner yoga things, and you're going on helicopter rides to San Francisco. And it's kind of like, I'm looking at them, and I'm like, straight people are so fucking weird, because everything works out for them in their minds. It's like, I have been hurt. I have loved one person in my whole life, It ended horribly. And you know what? I've shut myself off to emotions forever. And you know what? I'm almost okay with that, if it means they don't end up on The Bachelor or The Bachelorette. Anyway, that was a tangent. They have weird yoga. She gets into his lap, and they just stare at each other, and I had to look away. It was too awkward for me to just watch them staring at each other. So then there's the group date, and guess who's on the group date? Chad. And this is where the episode really gets going. So she takes them to a stand-up show. I don't know if stand-up's the right word, but it's like a cross between storytelling and stand-up. It's like Mortified, or The Moth, or that one podcast that I used to listen to that I couldn't stand the guy who runs it or who like hosts it, so I had to stop, where they talk about like these parts of their lives that are like that you wouldn't tell just anybody. And so this one was specifically about sex, because again, I've known these men for 5 days. I want to get into the nitty-gritty of their sex life, which I guess if you're going to call some people out, that's not a bad way to do it. So they all have to create constructions, or they all have to create stories about some kind of weird story that happened to them regarding their sex life. And all the guys are kind of like, oh, I don't know about this. And then Chad is kind of like the only guy who actually has a reasonable response, honestly. Like, Chad was me in that moment. And I think that's why Chad is such a douche, because I think I'm Chad. Without the steroids, but with the rage, for sure. And he's kind of like, I don't know her. She hasn't earned that from me. I don't want to know about her past sex life, and I don't want her to know about mine. And I think that's totally fair. When I go into a new relationship, I don't want to know what they've done before me, actually. Those conversations are actually always very awkward for me, and I'm not going to say 100% of the time, but like probably 100% of the time, any of those conversations are not started by me. I do not want to know about your past, and I don't want you to know about mine, because it's in the past. It's like, it's back there. It's back there. So Chad is the only one reasonable with that, but okay. So there's Evan, right? He's this guy who's like 33, he has 3 kids. 3 kids, and his name is Evan, which is a backwards 3, and he's an erectile dysfunction guy. He helps men with their erectile dysfunction. Oh, thank you, you're such a hero. His main defining quality, aside from all of that right now, is that he's basically a lesbian. He dresses exactly like one. He was wearing like, his red V-neck. It was very gay, but like a lesbian gay. And he hates Chad, because they all hate Chad, and so he decides that actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to get up there, instead of talking about my sex life, I'm going to talk about how Chad uses steroids, but I'm going to use really veiled language so that no one knows it's Chad, but that everybody knows it's Chad. And he does. And it's like, oh my god, what's Chad gonna do? Because he's clearly on steroids, right? Like, he's clearly roid raging. So Evan gets back in, and Chad's the last one to get up, of course, to go out to do his little stand-up act. And Chad gets aggressive and, like, shoves him. So anyway, they're like, oh, there's an altercation, what? Like, JoJo is oblivious. Like, never have I seen a more oblivious person on TV. The fact that Chad is there by the end of the episode is outrageous. Anyway, so Chad gets up and is kind of like, you know, he, again, if he weren't such an asshole, I don't want to say I'd be on his side, because he's an asshole. But he understands how stupid and ridiculous this is. But again, he's on The Bachelorette, so it doesn't matter, because you're on The Bachelorette. And then he's just a horrible person. So he gets up there and he's like, JoJo, will you come up here? I need, like, a prop. Because they think of her as a prop, like, there's no doubt. Earlier, Chase, the guy on the yoga date, said something about, oh, it's my girl. And I was like, shut the fuck up. Like, fuck you all. And then he gets up there and he's like, listen, I don't care about the past, I only care about the future with you. And then he tries to kiss her. And I wasn't watching at this point because I was so just mortified for everybody involved. But he tried to kiss her and she turned away. Oh, no. So anyway, everyone's done, they get done, and Chad, like, goes to the back and he punches a door, and he's got, like, bloody knuckles, and he's just, like, raging all over the place, and he goes up to Evan and he shoves him in the face, like, in his face, like, literally. Like, you remember in the real world when anybody would even touch somebody semi-aggressively and they would get kicked out of the house? Remember that one guy, Steven, he threw, the girl with Lyme disease, her teddy bear in the ocean, and, like, it was this huge thing. The fact that Chad was not immediately, like, subdued right there, because he literally put his hand on Evan's face. And apparently ripped Evan's shirt, but I don't know. I didn't see that happen. I don't know if the cameras caught it. They didn't replay anything or anything. So he's, like, roiding out. He's roid raging. And everyone's like, what the fuck? And then, you know, again, because this is reality TV and we care more about ratings than we do about people's personal safety, it continues, the date goes on, and, you know, Chad's being really creepy, and he's, like, trying to hone in on men's time with JoJo, which, okay, it's a competition, it's a reality show, like, that's not out of bounds, but he's doing it in a really creepy, off-putting way, because he's Chad and he's really creepy and off-putting. And then, God, what else happens? It's just really awkward. Oh, and Evan ends up getting the group date rose, but the reason he ends up getting the group date rose is not because JoJo, like, believes really a lot of things, but he sat her down and he was like, listen, if Chad stays, I have to go. And so she gave him the rose. But the thing is that because she gave him the rose, it didn't really mean anything. Like, it's not like she sent Chad home, because what happens is that Chad just keeps getting more and more and more roid ragey, and they bring security guards to stay at the mansion. And the guy who's rooming with him, whose name is Derek, I think that he's the guy who went to San Francisco last week, is his roommate and, like, won't sleep in the same room with him. Now, James Taylor, how did I not know his name is James Taylor? Like, James Taylor, like, the singer-songwriter James Taylor. It's like, get a new name, pick a new name, what are you doing with your life? He gets chosen for the second one-on-one date, but who cares about that, because it's all just 40s nostalgia, and I know that, like, I love to feel nostalgia for, like, time periods where women were treated even more like property. It's great. So they go and they learn how to swing dance, and he's like, aw, shucks, because he's from Katy, Texas, you know, burp, 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 and it's so clear, like, he just wants a record contract, because of course he has his guitar. Oh, fuck you. Ah. And he sings her a song, and she's like, oh my god. And I mean, the one thing I'll say for it is that he didn't just repeat her name on loop like that he did last week. Anyway, back at the ranch, everyone's getting just all souped up, like, they're all just all angry and shit, and there's this really great moment. Chad has one friend in the house who's, like, some kind of bro from, like, Boston or something. He reminds me of, like, just some kind of Irish mob, Bostonian, like, white trash kind of guy, but, you know, like, in a nice way. And he's his only friend. They live together, and the show keeps showing really homoerotic footage of the two of them lifting together, because the show is totally homophobic. I don't know if you knew that. And the guy is like, so let's like, he's like, I'm like getting, you know, whatever by association by hanging out with you. Like, you know, people like, yeah, whoa, it's like, why are you hanging out with him? And he's like, so imagine you're Hitler. And Chad, again, this is what bothers me. If he wasn't such a horrible person, has the really like, smart reaction to say like, no, let's not compare me to Hitler. And then, so, I think his name is Daniel. Daniel was like, oh, okay, then, like, you know, maybe not Hitler, but, like, Trump, you know? It's like, if you hang out with Trump, you know, people, like, start looking at you weird. So, like, maybe you just dial it down a notch. Instead of Hitler, be Mussolini. Literally, he said that. I'm not making this up. And Chad, because Chad is, at times when he is lucid from his steroids, the most sane person in the room, which I can't even believe I'm saying that, looks at him like, what? And then he's like, or not Donald Trump, but, like, Bush, you know, just take it down a notch. And I'm like... Well, at least he knows who Mussolini is, right? At least he knows that who Bush is. He seems to be somewhat politically aware, this guy. Anyway, they're all in the thing. For the rose ceremony, we stop before there's a rose ceremony because JoJo decides there's going to be no cocktail party. Instead, and this is not going to be at all a shit show. We're going to have a pool party, cocktail party all day. So we're going to be in the hot, hot sun drinking lots and lots of liquor with a guy who's like dying for testosterone and his steroids, and other guys who just hate his guts. Oh, and I need to just mention that when he was having that Hitler conversation with Daniel, I think his name is Daniel, Chad was eating raw lettuce, and he was eating a raw sweet potato, like eating it like an apple. It was a thing of beauty, and you know, I don't know if anything will ever come close to the euphoria I felt of how horrible this is. I hope that this gets on YouTube because it's almost 12 minutes. Okay, so Chris comes by and tells everyone that they're not going to have a cocktail party, they're going to have an all-day shit show pool party, and then he's like, I'm going to go, and so Evan follows him out, and it's like, listen, I need you to know there's been, like, violence, and he describes things that have happened, and it's like, yeah, like, Chris knows, like, obviously, the producers know, it was caught on video. And so Chris is like, listen, I'll address this. You know, we take matters of personal safety very seriously. So he goes in, he grabs Chad, and he brings Chad out, and he talks to Chad, and he's like, what? And Chad's like, no, man, Evan shoved me. And then he's like, well, what about these other guys who are saying this stuff? And he's like, it's not me. I'm not starting. It's like they're like bullying the bully. And Chris is like, you're the bully in this scenario? And he's like, he doesn't know where to go with that. But anyway, Chris is like, so I'm not going to kick you out. Like, we take violence very seriously here, but I'm not going to kick you out. Like, that's not what I'm going to do. What you need to do is you need to, like, do whatever you're going to do. Like, go in there and just do whatever you're going to do. And it's like, so I started watching the TV show Unreal on Lifetime because it's on Hulu, and it's about a show that's like The Bachelor, and it's behind the scenes, the manipulations that go on behind the scenes. And never before have I seen it so blatant a ratings grab as that, where Chris literally has this choice. This guy is clearly on steroids. This guy's clearly a menace to the people in the house. He's clearly somebody who, if he ends up with JoJo, would probably be somebody who would hurt her physically if he got angry enough. And he's not talking him down. He's not taking him out of the house. He is allowing him to go back into the house to basically settle his score in hopes probably that some punches will be thrown. And we'll see what happens. You know, there's blood next week. A bunch of people are bleeding. I think Evan is bleeding. I think that James Taylor is bleeding. I don't know how this happens. We see footage of Chad kicking a blow-up flamingo with a drink in his hand. I mean, he just needs to eat more sweet potato, maybe. Eat more yams. Like, calm down. Even though Mr. Brandenburg and Algebra 2 and AP Calc used to say, eat more yams, it'll keep you awake. He would always tell us, don't eat turkey at Thanksgiving, just eat yams. And then he would say, this is a zoo. Mr. Brandenburg, good times. I would like to see him on The Bachelor. So that's it. So I gotta go because this is 14 minutes long, and I don't know if YouTube's gonna upload it. But I'll see you tomorrow because it was a two-parter. So I'm seeing Beyonce tonight, so I won't, presumably I will sleep in a little bit later. But when I wake up, I will watch this fuck fest for you, Kendra. And even though it takes off 2 hours of my goddamn life, and then record and let you know what happened.